Hey, Jonathan, thank you for inviting to the presentation. It's a pleasure to join today. Instead of giving a set of slides today, I wanted to share a little bit about our project, Stack AI, and what we've been doing over the past few years. Fun fact, Jonathan and I were roommates back on my days at MIT when I was a PhD student, and Nathan was, exploring his early days as a developer in Boston. So yeah, so since then, a lot of things have happened. My name is Bernard. I'm the co-founder of Stack AI. At Stack AI, we have developed a platform that allows enterprises to design AI agents using a visual programming interface in a way that is very flexible but powerful, and design in a way that you can deploy enterprise-wide. For instance, banks, hospitals, private and hedge funds use Stack AI to generate a set of internal tools that use AI agents to automate back office processes, such as training staff, processing documents, performing deep web research, and enriching internally database information. I think that the best way to run this conversation is probably to do a quick demo of the product and go together into building what would be a common use case for AI that we could use. For instance, enriching a data set of customers that attendance of the conference by doing some research on it. When you come to Stack AI and you have an account, an organization will have a dashboard where they can organize all the different agents that they have created for different common internal use cases. And here I'm actually showing you my organization, where I have a few agents I have created for me before. A Confluence assistant that helps me find resources in our an internal Confluence, an RFP response agent that helps me find responses to our draft responses to RFPs, a conference scraper that scrapes the list of attendance to our conference, and some legal workflows to like manage invoices and whatnot. The way Stack AI works is that whenever you want to create an agent for a process, you have a workflow builder, which is a no-code interface, where you can design the logic for your workflow by dragging and dropping and connecting blocks together in order to connect an interface, or using a quick start that could very quickly give you a powerful AI agent that can connect to the internal tools and knowledge bases. Let's start from scratch and see how we can build something together. For the purpose of this demo, we're gonna build together an AI assistant that will help me research leads that come to our platform, and will help me answer key questions about them, like who they are, how big is their company, what's the opportunity, and based on our use cases or what we do in a company, how they could use our product. As you can see, we give you a wide variety of templates to get started for common use cases like performing web research, having a Q&A agent to interact with a database, analyze contracts, respond to RFPs, draft investment memos automatically, and the likes. So for this purpose, we're going to start from scratch. We're going to start with an empty project. And we're going to be defining what do we want our AI agent to do. This screen here you're seeing is the main screen of Stack AI, is the workflow builder. It's the place where you will design the logic of your agent. Meaning, what are the inputs of my agent? What does the agent receive from the user? What are the outputs of the agent? What do I expect it to generate? And what logic should it follow in order to complete that task? The simplest agent you can build actually is one in which you have by default a text input, and that's the only input you have, and you're connected to a text output in your workflow. And that way you create something where you can have a message like, hello world. And by executing this agent, it will essentially just send this message from here to the output. And you could see it. Nothing very impressive. But the powerful thing is that as you want to build internal applications, you can have a wide variety of inputs. You can have text inputs, but also you can have files, you can have websites, you can have audio recordings, you can have images, and you can even trigger this workflow whenever you receive an email or whenever a certain schedule happens. For the purpose of this workflow, because we are researching companies, our input is going to be the name of the company we are researching. I say company, and here you put company name. That's going to be our input. We're going to call this input company name. For instance, I want to research a company I just signed up to my CRM called DHL. Now, what's happening next? In the output, you can also generate multiple kinds of output. By default, you generate a text output where you can have a report text, a table, whatnot, anything that can be generated by a language model in text. You can also generate images, you can generate audio, or you can execute some actions like writing the output to a Google Sheet, writing it to a Notion, sending it an email or whatnot. So that you can have also kind of like writing commands as the output to the workflow once it completes its execution. Once you have these components together set up, the next question is, okay, what happens in the middle? In the middle, you can add logic. And the first component you're going to want to add is a large language model. Why? A large language model is going to be the way in which you're going to enrich the information you have in here and submitting the output of this form. So for instance, the first thing I could do is to add a language model. Let's say I want to pick an OpenAI language model and drop it here. Because Stack AI is designed for the enterprise, we are language model agnostic. You can bring your own language models hosted in your own premises or from your own cloud providers like Azure, Bedrock, or even Grok or Cerebras. You can even bring your own language models hosted locally if you decide to use Stack AI on premises, like many of our customers do. So for instance, a very common workflow I would do would be one in which I take the input I have in here, let's say this company name, I pass it to my language model as an input, and then whatever it generates, I send it to the output. Of course, I need to tell the language model a few things. First of all, what model do I want to use in order to power this workflow? I could use, for instance, GPT-4o or O3 Mini, which is the latest model from OpenAI, in order to perform this task. I also need to give it a list of play of natural language instructions telling what is this task. I can tell it, you are an assistant that helps me research companies and extract the following things. And what would be the kind of things I would like to extract? I would want to extract the company name. I would like to extract the employee size. I would like to extract the approximate revenue per year. I would like to extract potential use cases for language models. And I would like to extract what similar clients do we serve. Now, this is a complicated task because it involves that the language model should be able to somehow find all this information from both public sources, but also private sources, like what clients do we have and how they look like. And that will be the set of the way in which we are constructed to work. In a section called the prompt, I basically tell the language model what the inputs it can have on the live hour. And in this case, it only has one input, but it could have many. If, for instance, I provided alongside with the company a file, let's say a set of documents, I could perform OCR on these documents, extract the text on it, and pass it to the language model as an input, and it could have another one. So in order to handle those scenarios where you can have multiple inputs, in a section called the prompt, you can specify what each of the things connected to the language model are in plain English. For instance, here I'm telling it by default, the user message company name. And here I'm just going to tell it company name is going to be whatever comes from this text box, company name. It's company name to research, company to research. And based on that, I'm going to get the response. I could give it additional instructions like respond in bullet points, and that way get a more structured response in the end. Something I didn't mention is that these language models also allow you to provide them with tools, meaning ways in which they can actually interact with external APIs in order to complete their tasks as they're performing a response. They can do web search, news search, they can search on LinkedIn, they can send an email, they can create tickets on Zendesk, they can do research on Yahoo Finance, they can send refunds, they can do operations on Stripe. And this way you can build quite powerful agents that can be done for customers, can be used for customer success, internal support tickets, IT service desk, or whatnot. Something I could do in here is I could give it some Yahoo Finance analytics in order to research this company. In the case that there's a ticker that we know. So first, if I run this workflow now with DHL, it's going to take the text, it's going to pass it to a language model. This language model will follow these instructions, knowing that this is the input it has, and evaluating the tools I have given it to it. And with that, it will reason, being O3 Mini, a way in which it could use this tool to complete this task, and then generate a response. For instance, in this case, it gave me a relatively good response of what we have. For instance, in here it's telling me the name of the company, it's telling me the size, approximately the revenue based on annual reports that it found on Yahoo Finance, potential use cases for LMs, and common clients, similar clients. Now, maybe I find that this is not enough information. Why? Because it doesn't have any context on my company. For this purpose, there's an entire new section within Stack AI that you can take that we can look at, which is the knowledge bases. Knowledge bases are a way in which we can inject knowledge in the language model from either private sources of knowledge, like our internal documents, let's say our Google Drive, our SharePoint, our Confluence, in order for it to be able to reference these sources when it gets a response to the research on this, or public sources online like LinkedIn, Google search, web search, in the future, very soon also PitchBook, in order to add information from these sources live to the language model. For instance, I could add information from LinkedIn to give the context on what this company is, what has been found for this company on LinkedIn, and in our internal knowledge base. For instance, I can add a knowledge base of documents where I can put the list of customers that we have and their use cases. So for instance, I have, just by nature of by coincidence, a table where I list out some of the use cases and customers that we have at Stack AI. So I could use that as a source for the language model, in order for the language model to know where are the use cases it can cover and what customers do we have by industries and departments. So for instance, now I could build a workflow where, based on this company, I search this company on LinkedIn, I search the closest thing to this company inside of our knowledge base, and I pass these three components to a language model: the company name, the results of LinkedIn, and the results from our knowledge base. And with that, we have a workflow that where I can tell the language model company to research, I can tell it context from LinkedIn, I can tell it context from our knowledge base, and this way, actually have a workflow that now is completing a deep research in LinkedIn, our internal documents, and the source. And in this case, I uploaded just one table of files, but I could upload an entire library of thousands of SharePoint documents or thousands of files from my Google Drive and have these be sources to a language model. I could also connect it to our databases. Let's say if I have a database in Snowflake of common use cases and deals, or a library on Postgres or any common other source like Airtable, even in our own Slack or CRM like Salesforce or HubSpot. If I now run this workflow, you'll see I now will run a much more complex process. It will take this company name, it will first research the company on LinkedIn, in parallel as it's researching the company in an internal database. As it's this thing, it's scraping the websites, it's handing everything to the language model. With this context, the language model will now take all these pieces of information, will reason how we can use the tool I just provided from Yahoo Finance, and based on these instructions, completes the that I gave it. Gave me the company name, employee size, approximate revenue per year, potential use cases of LLMs, similar accounts to serve, and give me a response in bullet points. And write me that as I ask it for in format. And it will tell me actually from each source where I got everything: company size, approximate revenue per year, potential use cases for LLMs, based in our actual table of use cases that we support, and similar clients that we have supported. For instance, here specifies some of our clients similar to them: Newbank, HNTV, that we have actually worked with in the past. And in this context, it will generate this. But what if I want more? What if I actually want to take this and automatically serve it to Google Sheets when I finish it? Well, something I could do is I could tell it, give me, instead of a table, give me a JSON. Don't give me citations because I don't need that. And let's use a model that's a bit faster, like GPT-4o. And let me tell it, instead of responding in bullet points, respond in a JSON with these fields as keys. And then, apart from getting this output, I can also in parallel take the JSON generated and add it as a row to my Google Sheets, where I can connect to my account in Google Sheets. I can just test one of my connections, set that up, pick a sheet I have created, add as the spreadsheet ID, and then save it in order to upload it there. I don't know if I have too much time that time, but I could show you very quickly how this could work. And with that, demonstrate kind of like how this can go full loop into building an entire AI workflow agent that can power an application and a production-ready application. For instance, I just create a Google Sheet in here. I'm putting the spreadsheet ID connected to my Google Drive account, of course. And I'm putting in here the ID of the sheet I have to connect to. So now if I run this workflow, which I can zoom out, I can then go, connect to it, run it, and do its process. And of course, this interface is very friendly and simple, but it can also be powerful. Some other thing I could touch on are the ability you can use to use logic like Python, like calling Python in the middle, add routing logic to pick different paths, add your own custom APIs in the middle, or so, allowing developers and more advanced teams to add multiple use cases in the middle. So for instance, now you can see that my language model generated a JSON. If I go to my Google Sheets, you will see that now this actually added an entire new sheet to my Google Sheet with all the components I needed. So that if I do add all this information in the future to my Google, if I want to research 100 companies in the future, I can do so. Now, going back to this workflow, this interface is very nice, but how do I make this useful for my business users? Naturally, we don't want business users, people in my sales team or people in my marketing team, to be interacting with this complex workflow. For that purpose, developers in here, designers of this workflow, can save them and publish this in order to create an application where they can use one of our many pre-built user interfaces in order to share them. By default, we offer them interfaces such as the form, which basically allow you to specify different inputs you have and get an output in the end. A chat interface, in which case you can have a ChatGPT interface where you can interact with this agent, or an API, so that you can actually call this agent as part of another downstream process, as well as a batch interface, so that you can call this workflow many times in parallel. In the case that you want to, let's say, analyze 300 companies in parallel from a CSV that you have collected. Essentially, Stack AI enables any organization to build a suite of internal tools that are enterprise ready, that connect to language models and can automate a wide variety of these processes. And today, since launching, we serve more than 200 enterprises in the US and worldwide. Stack AI is SOC 2 compliant, HIPAA compliant. We serve banks, defense contractors, hospitals, many construction logistics companies. And by nature of that, have worked with some of the biggest companies in the world. So it's been an exciting time to kind of keep growing. And it's an exciting time to keep exploring how we can expand. Of course, there is much more you can do than just researching clients. As you can see here, there's a large variety of agents you can build, including the ability to quickly build conversational agents that can look into a knowledge base and essentially just look for resources on them. But with that, I'm going to end my conversation. And if you want to try more or you want to look for opportunities, come visit stackai.com or feel free to reach out to us at enterprise@stack-ai.com. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Bernardo. Honestly, like an incredible talk. So let me just like reiterate everything so I like understand like exactly what you're saying. So if I understand kind of like the premise of Stack AI, it's like, hey, you know, these large language models are really powerful, and people might have their own data or workflows that they'd want to do. And Stack AI kind of provides like this low code interface where you can like leverage these LMs, interact with your data to kind of build your custom workflows and tasks, similar to like how like agents would, you know?
Precisely, yeah, Nathan. And yeah, and you can try it today. Actually, there's a free playground you can use to create an account, build some simple workflows yourself, and start bringing the power of AI agents to your day to day.